tested and it failed. I realized that I wasted a month of my time. And so there in that moment with my advisor looking on, I felt defeated. And I felt like everything that I spent time creating, all those other extra pieces, I needed to throw them away and start over. Well, it hurt. I took a moment. I took a weekend. I probably took a little more than a weekend. But I had to remind myself what the research program was and what I'm also ultimately trying to study in this program. Recommitting to that is what allowed me to go back and revise a plan. And so that's the next step in the routine.
Hello, Wolfpack fans. It's Marcy Bullock with Dr. Nehemiah Mabry. Hello, Dr. Mabry.
Marcy, how are you? I'm great. How are you?
We're both doing great because we just both had a delicious lunch together.
Delicious is an understatement. I am nice and full. And as I told you, I'm very comfortable now. So this is going to be a breeze.
Well, let me tell our audience a little bit about you, the accomplished engineer, educator, and entrepreneur who combines 15 plus years of experience in roles such as NASA researcher, design engineer, and adjunct professor. Currently, you are the CEO of STEMedia, which we'll get to hear all about. And you've led this company to international recognition. I recently heard one of your videos about the bridge that fell down, shall we say, in Baltimore. And I found that really interesting, you analyzing one of the big national disasters. And you engage with many diverse organizations and academic institutions. Your leadership and impactful outreach exemplify your capability to inspire and connect in the global STEM community. Ooh, that is an awesome background.
With you reading it, it sounds even better.
I want to know what the STEM community is for some of our listeners who aren't familiar with that terminology.
Absolutely. STEM stands for science, technology, engineering, and math. And, growing up, I always felt an inclination to technical things, science, subjects, and media always caught my attention. And then STEM came along. I heard that term around the time when I was pursuing engineering as a major. And I started realizing, okay, this is the acronym that stands for everything that I guess I would say I have a natural bent towards. I didn't always consider myself the biggest fan of math, but I started to realize, hey, it doesn't come as hard to me as it may to others. So anyone who's in science, who likes technology, or is interested in technology, engineering, problem solving, and then mathematics, they're not afraid of numbers. You are a part of the STEM community, whether you do it for pay as a professional, whether you're just into it in school, or you're just a hobbyist. I say that is what the STEM community is.
And that impacts every human on the planet,
Every
those
single
four
one.
words that you just said. So
Yes.
I know I was one of those people afraid of math, but I do admire people who are able to master some of these really complicated disciplines.
Yes.
I was more of a humanities girl, and I think I've heard STEAM sometimes. Have you ever heard that?
STEAM, yeah, it throws in the A, STEAM, STEAM. The A stands for arts. And I think that's humanity, right? Like so much of what we do depends on the technical aspects, the programming, the coding, but then artistic in the way that it's presented, artistic in the way that we interact with it as humans. Art really does bring it back to the human element.
100%.
Yeah.
You are a proud Wolfpack alum.
Yes, I am. Go Pack.
So I'd love to hear you talk about what got you to NC State and where
Yes.
it has led you to today.
Absolutely. Listen, I am so happy I came to NC State, and I can clearly see how it impacted my trajectory. But I didn't even always know about NC State. A lot of people talk about the schools down the road. But when I was living in Huntsville, Alabama, where I grew up, I was pursuing, my bachelor's in math and civil engineering. And then also I pursued a master's in civil engineering, but I had internship experience at a NASA installation called Marshall Space Flight Center. And as you know, they're not building houses or bridges. NASA's building rockets. They're trying to get to the moon and other places in space. And so an aerospace internship and application is where my experience was, though my education was all in the civil and infrastructure type realm. But doing work at NASA, I got really interested in the area of structural health monitoring, which is the process of integrating sensors into what they were doing, space vehicles and spacecraft to determine, what type of degradation would take place. Not only that, it was around the time after what they had was the Columbia shuttle disaster. So one of our space shuttles had a catastrophe and really broke apart upon reentry back in, I think, 2003. And so there was a lot of attention to How can we monitor things before they become catastrophic? How can we make sure we have sensors and other methods of what they call non-destructive evaluation in place? And so I got immersed in that. I had a mentor by the name of Dr. Curtis Banks. I started learning these things on the job, went to conferences, and then I was given the opportunity to go and get a portion of graduate school paid for. Now, at the time, I didn't plan on going to grad school, Marcy, but it was also around the time of what they call the Great Recession when I was sort of finishing up my college period. So I had been in NASA for maybe 7, 8 years. So it's not like the job market was really hiring, and here it is, this opportunity to get my PhD paid for. So now the question is where? And so with the mentors, it was like, where can I go to school that can also, again, have a great, strong program in this aerospace engineering technology, but also have a good civil engineering program? And therefore, I was connected to someone we both know and love, Dr. Kara Peters. Was able to meet her at a conference. She told me about her work in the same area of structural health monitoring, non-destructive evaluation. And that was the bridge between my mentor, Dr. Curtis Banks at NASA, and Dr. Kara Peters that sort of led me to NC State as the destination for my PhD.
Thank you for sharing that story, relationships and introductions and
Yes.
full circle moments. I love that. And how did that lead to where you are today? Because your journey includes, as you just mentioned, NASA. You've also taught, you have now founded a new company. And I'd just be curious about the moments along the way that made you realize the power of storytelling
Yes.
and representation
Yes.
in STEM.
Right. So the story goes, I get here to NC State. I do one semester, 2011. 2012, I'm walking on campus and I see a sign and it says, engineering, stay with it. Apparently, there was this big campaign that initiated in the White House, I believe it was the Obama White House at the time, that was trying to reduce the number of students that were dropping out of engineering. Because we all know it's not the easiest major out there, easiest career path. So people were leaving engineering. So they said, we're going to do a campaign nationwide to try to get students to stay with it, stay with engineering. And we're going to launch this with a video contest, Marcy, video contest. So I said, you know what? I think I could do this video contest. I was obviously a grad student here on campus. I had a great other mentor I connected with by the name of Angelita Daniel, who's still here at the university. And I said, hey, what's this contest thing? Can I enter it? You think I could do it? Is it only for grad students? She said, yeah, go ahead and do it. And so this one I began to pull on some of my extracurricular experiences from undergrad. See, one of the things that I did prior to coming to NC State was improv drama. I did improv drama. I also learned how to play the bass guitar, did a little bit of music. I rapped a little bit, right? I had all these things. And so here we are watching opportunity to merge creative interests with engineering, which is what I was studying at the time. So I entered the video contest. Instead of doing a talking head, they say, tell us why you chose engineering, what you're going to do with it, how are you staying with it? I said, I'm going to make the Super Bowl commercial of engineering, Marcy. So I'm going to get my friend. We're going to go around campus. We're going to do a day in the life. We're going to do a whole night like story, right? Because I didn't want to just set up the camera and talk, which is, I believe, what most people are going to do. And sure enough, it's online right now. It's sort of the first video on our YouTube channel where it starts out showing me having a bad grade and then showing me going throughout the day, studying, doing office hours, what have you. And then at the end, I get I redeem myself for like a 99 on that same class. And long story short, got a call from MTV shortly after that. They were connected. MTV. What? Hey, this is an engineering contest. Are you sure you're an engineering student? Because we got a lot of talking head videos, and this is the only one that has a storyline. I'm like, yeah, it has a storyline because, I was the engineering Super Bowl commercial. And I won the national grand prize for this engineering video contest.
Amazing.
Based on the story of someone who's having a hard time, does a bad grade, and then comes back and redeems herself. And so as a result of that, I won that, got a new laptop as a part of the prize. And that's really what helped me to see that, hey, there is a power, not just in learning the numbers and the adding, subtracting, dividing, the calculus and the physics, but being able to tell a story can move people in a mighty way. That is the reason why they even launched this entire campaign, because they realize that it's not just about the know-how or the competency, but the story that we tell, the story that we embrace in our own minds has an impact in us staying with it.
And that's an amazing story. You won this national competition.
Yeah.
We will link to your video in our show notes.
Okay.
We will get to see the Super Bowl of the STEM. And
Don't judge me on that quality, by the way. I mean, we've gotten better quality wise. This was a while ago, so just want to say that for the audience.
fair. So, a lot of these listeners are students that are trying to figure out their path. And I'm just imagining you walking across campus, this flyer catches your eye,
Yeah.
and it totally took you in maybe a serendipity direction of
Yes.
something you never thought about, even though you, like you talked about, you like the theater and the drama, and you
Yeah.
had that piece of yourself, but combining it all. So, what advice would you give to someone who feels passionate about STEM, but doesn't really see themselves reflected in the field yet or know what they want to do in the field?
Absolutely, absolutely. So this is where the term exposure really comes into play, because sometimes a person don't feel like they fit because they just haven't seen something that they can see themselves in. And so I mean that not just in terms of, people that look like them that can relate to culturally, but also in terms of like the different disciplines and the different ways that those disciplines can show up in the marketplace. So you want to find yourself in opportunities where you're exposed to as many things as possible. This has happened by a number of ways: volunteering, getting involved, seeing, tasting what different industries are like, calling someone up who you just happen to connect on LinkedIn, send them a message. Hey, can I come and just shadow you for like, an hour or two in the morning, right? Getting on YouTube and just searching unusual engineering careers, watching TV shows, listening to podcasts like this. The more you are exposed to, the more you can kind of have maybe something that catches your eye or catches your ear. And then you know how we do, Marcy. We go down a rabbit hole. We get online and we're Googling and we're reading and we're clicking on another link and we're reading. The more you can kind of like have that curiosity and follow your nose, the more you will be surprised to find out that even though the majors, none of the majors may not speak to you as they're listed, nuclear, civil, whatever, you may find an actual career that does things. I mean, people have engineering degrees that work in Hollywood. People have engineering degrees that work in the outdoors, overseas. There's just a lot of different things that people don't realize they can end up. But if you can kind of find something that like kind of piques your interest, you can go after that. So that's one thing I'll say, really too. And another thing I say is finding your zone of genius. So if you can find what is really interesting in if you were to imagine a Venn diagram, right? Circles. You have a circle of things that you're really passionate about, you really enjoy. And then you look at what may overlay with another circle, which is things you are naturally good at. You might not say it's your most fun thing to do in your free time, but if you're good at it, if you can find something that overlaps and then overlaps with a third circle, which is what people pay for, where it makes economic sense, I think that is a zone of genius where somebody can find themselves in a very fulfilling career.
And Dr. Mabry, you are speaking my language as a career development professional. And the only other thing I sometimes add into that is values, that it's important to you. What you're doing matters. And clearly you have that drive. But I do want to get into the hard stuff because life is not all rainbows and unicorns. So let's talk about the challenges that you faced building something so unique in this company and what kept you going during the really hard parts.
Yeah. No, there definitely are hard parts. So a lot of times when you're building, like in my case, building a company, also in my case, staying in school so long, not just getting a bachelor's or a master's and a PhD, you do a lot of work up front before you start to see the fruit of it, right? It's sort of this delayed gratification because while there are opportunities to get a job right away or opportunities to say, I'm just going to do this because this brings a more immediate satisfaction, you choose something that is going to have a greater return because you see that what you're putting in now are going to have an even greater fulfillment than if you just took the short-term thing. That being said, while you are waiting on that, there are opportunities you may be missing because maybe the finances aren't there because you're still in the startup phase. There are individuals who are in your family that may go through hardships or may even pass away. I remember losing my aunt, right, to cancer during the period where I could have been out of school, could have been making money, but because of where I felt I was called to go, I was still sort of on the process. She didn't get to see it, right? So there are a lot of things that you kind of call yourself away and start to question, is this worth it? And the only way that you can keep going is to have a why that reminds you that it's worth it. And my why may start with what I'm interested in, my values and things like that, but it also extends to that which lives longer than me. One of my favorite quotes goes, one of the best investments in life is something that would outlive it. It's one of the best investments in life. So when I began to think about the fact that I am building something that can not only sustain when I get there, but sustain those who come after me, my children, my family members, make an even greater impact, that reminds me of why I'm doing what I'm doing. And it helps me to sort of like mentally go into the future. That's what vision is. You mentally say, if I were to be 5 years from now, 10 years from now, let me imagine that reality. And it may seem, kind of cliche here, but I think that those are the things that are necessary, that greater why, that greater vision to get you through some of those hard parts. Yes, it hurts. Yes, you should pay attention to it. But if you have a muscle of being able to say, hey, this is where I'm working towards, this is what I envision, this is why I'm doing it, I think you will always find a way to get back up.
So, speaking of muscles, let's just imagine resilience was a muscle group.
Sure.
What workout built yours the most, and what's your recovery routine during the setbacks?
Oh man, two different answers. First answer, what built my most writing. So you're in grad school, you're in PhD, dissertations, thesis, even in undergrad, a lot of times you are writing. And as an engineer, someone who does a lot of number work, as a creative, someone who has a lot of like ideas, writing is painful for me. It's very painful for me because I almost have to slow down my mind and discipline myself with every word. It's not something you can really multitask with. I can't, at least. And so whenever I write, as is necessary, even in my job today, it's sort of a workout for me, especially when I finally mustered up that first draft and then I get back another draft and it's marked up. It's like, hey, you got to start over again. You got to do all this over again. That really helps me to develop that resilience. I kid you not, right? And that is for me a workout. But in terms of a recovery routine, right? I think a recovery routine does start with acknowledging what happened. I got a bad grade. This experiment didn't work out like I thought it should work out. I applied for the job. They gave it to somebody else. Let me take a moment and acknowledge it. Let me not rush past it. Let me not, oh, well, I don't care. No, if you care, take a moment and acknowledge the fact that you care, right? Maybe that moment may be, going back home, taking a nap, maybe just calling someone that's your loved one and kind of venting to them, right? Not even necessarily getting advice. I say you like to have mentors, but also ventors, right? So somebody you can call and just vent to. Take a moment. Now, after you take a moment, it is necessary, though, that moment has an expiration time. Now, that moment doesn't necessarily need to be just 5 minutes. Maybe it's a weekend, right? I'm not going to necessarily say how long it needs to be, but it needs to end at some point. And when it ends by you sort of reaffirming or recommitting to your purpose. That's where you go back into that vision. Remind yourself the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing. Okay, I believe that this is a career path that's going to make a difference in the world. I believe this is a career path that so many people have invested in. So I'm going to get up and I'm going to apply for another job. Or I'm going to redesign my experiment. I'll give you a quick example. I was doing an experimental program here at NC State, and part of the program involved creating specimens or test pieces for our tests, right? And when we test them, they're supposed to fail. They're supposed to break. However, they're supposed to break in a certain way so that we can observe how like the bond between two things it's behaving. Well, I did it. I took a lot of time. It involved concrete. For people who don't know, concrete takes a while to dry and to set and get hard. Spent almost a month creating these. Finally got my advisor, Dr. Saraceno at the time, came, watched it. I tested it and it failed, but it failed in the wrong way, Marcy. Uh-oh. I realized that I wasted a month of my time. And so there in that moment with my advisor looking on, I felt defeated. And I felt like, oh man, not felt like it. It was a fact that everything that I spent time creating, all those other extra pieces, I needed to throw them away and start over. Well, it hurt. I took a moment. I took a weekend. I probably took a little more than a weekend. But I had to remind myself what the research program was and what I'm also ultimately trying to study in this program. Recommitting to that is what allowed me to go back and revise a plan. And so that's the next step in the routine. What is now the plan to give it another swing? What is now the plan to give it another shot? And as I did in that situation, I advise other people to do and still do today. Get that plan and then go back and create and execute.
Thank you for normalizing that struggle, because many people are in it. They're in that struggle right now, and they needed to hear that today. Sometimes life feels like a Jenga game where if you just move one thing, everything is going to topple over. And you have a lot going on in your life with your career, your family. Any thoughts on how you keep it all from toppling over?
That's a good question. Keep it off and toppling over, because I would even say toppling over is relative. And even when you feel like it has toppled over, everything hasn't toppled over. Because unlike a Jenga game, it isn't like when it topples over, you're out the game. You got to move on. I would say in life, whenever it topples over, you can start back building it back up again. First thing is just acknowledging that whatever does happen, whatever topple over does happen, you are smart enough to figure out what to do next. And so that is not even a period, but it's a pause. You know what I mean? Again, if you can avoid those pauses, you would. And so I think this is where having a support system. Shout out to my wife. Shout out to my daughters. People in your life who can remind you of your value even beyond what you're trying to accomplish. People in your life who believe in what you're trying to accomplish and are willing to support you how they can. And then realizing that because you want to support them how you can, you shouldn't make the timetable all about you. Maybe things can go at 5 miles per hour during this season, and then there's another in the fall, you can crank things up to 80 miles per hour, right? Being a little bit more gracious in yourself in terms of the timetable, recognizing that there are a lot of things at play, but never losing sight of where you are headed. I think what messes up a lot of people is thinking that I got to do all this and I got to do this before I turn 30. Do you really have to? Are you going to lose out on anything if you do it by the time you're 32 or 40 or 50 or 60? Ultimately, yes, you don't want to waste time, but you want to remove this idea that I must do this in this way. They must look exactly how things are going to look. You can keep that vision, but if you give yourself a little bit more grace, surround yourself with the right people, I think that things have a better job of staying intact that way as opposed to forcing it.
2 more questions for you. Time is flying. All right, so now you are looking back on your life and you're imagining it's a mixtape. What would be the title of side A, and what would the hidden bonus track be? A little musical infusion
Wow,
here.
mixtape. All right. Going back. I put out mixtapes back in the day, so I can think of some things that would work. But no, I'm really big on engineering and purpose, engineering your purpose. So if my mixtape, it would be called Engineering Your Purpose. That would be the overall thing, right? Engineering your purpose. Because I think that the engineering design process is actually parallel with a lot of what we do in achieving our goals or solving problems in everyday life. And I think purpose speaks to the idea that it's not just a single job. It's not just a single role. It's not even just a single chapter in your life, but a continuous thread through something that matters that would outlive you. So engineering purpose would be. But the hidden bonus track, that's a good one right there. Hidden bonus track. Because the bonus track doesn't have to necessarily be the single. It doesn't need to be the music video, but it's hidden. Like people's like, oh, this is a deep cut. That's what you're asking, right, Marcy?
Absolutely.
That deep cut that, the real ones know about. That bonus track would probably be something called 2 a.m. in the lab.
Good.
2 a.m. in the lab. Anybody who's been in the lab late nights, they know exactly what I'm talking about. That is 2 a.m. in the lab. You probably listen to some music, probably snacking on something you probably ate too much of already, and you just really got to get something done. Or you may have already fallen asleep in the lab, and you're waking back up and realize you still there. Anything can happen 2 a.m. in the lab, right? Let me just say it like that. But that's the hidden bonus track.
Yes, great title.
Yeah.
All right, so now last question. You get a time traveling elevator pitch. So what we're going to do is there is a 30-second voice memo in your inbox from the future, from you in 2035. You're calling yourself, leaving a voicemail.
The future me is calling the me that's doing this podcast right now.
You got it. And you get this time traveling elevator pitch about your life and your advice. What is it? What do you get to hear?
Oh man, okay. So I need to go into character, right? Like I'm future me calling present me right now.
10 years older.
And I'm leaving. How long do I have?
You get 30 seconds.
I get 30 seconds?
It's tough.
Hey, Nehemiah, how you doing? Hey, it's me, you. I'm you from the future, and I just want to say it was all worth it. It was all worth it. And the reason why I'm telling you that is because I know that you ask yourself that question every now and then. It gets very hard balancing family, balancing marriage, balancing your business, even your professional engineering life. It is tough, but trust me, it's all worth it. Hold on. Give me a second. The waiter's asking me about my drink order. Yeah, I just have just virgin pina colada is good. Yeah, bring it back. Yeah. Sorry, I'm over here on the beach having a good time. But it is worth it, Nee. So don't give up. Don't give up. Yes, I still have problems in the future. Yes, I still have challenges. But I can tell you right now, it is worth it. So continue to give your all and don't cheat the process.